think we're live right now. Let me check the stream or not. Let me check the stream. Wait a minute. Okay. Wait a minute. Wait, it's live. Okay. Check if I'm audible or not. Am I audible? Yes, it is working. Let me check it again once more time. Yeah, yeah, I think it's working. Okay. Okay, so I am audible. So now today we're going to understand how the communication between the client and the server works. First of all, we need to understand some of the terminologies that are going to be mentioned in all of this presentation, or let's say an explanation. First of all, let me show a demo over here. So network tab open. Okay, so we're going to understand that this client, this front end that is shown in the browser, how does it communicates with the server, the database that fetches data to be shown to the client side. For example, when I click on this, lot of requests, you see there are a lot of requests that are going here and a lot of errors that are also shown and warning signs, and there is a lot of responses. And when we click on some of the, okay, this is the main request, no, it's the main page request, that is, you can see that there is some kind of structure that is followed, this, and whatever I do, the structure of the request remains the same. Preview response, okay, timing, this is the main parts of the components that we're going to be understanding. So let's begin. So first of all, there are two parts you need to understand. So first one is the client part, this part that is shown in the browser. The second part is a server, that is the database. And the middle one is the HTTP server that is working between these two components, that is providing all the architecture and the information logic. Okay. Okay, this is not HTTP, this is server. This HTTP is somewhere between here. We can, okay, let me again push it again. Let me delete it. Okay, it's not deletable. Let me again push it again. Okay, I think now it's working. HTTP. Okay, it's shown. It's not quite. Okay, this is, size is same now. You can see here that this is the middle part that is working between the database and the client. That is going to be performing a lot of the actions and the information fetching and the request. So let's start again from the basics. As you can see, this is the main part. Okay, see here, this is the basic flow of the information, basic flow of the client server architecture. So this is the browser that sends the request. For example, first of all, the request is sent from the browser to the server, that is the main information or the database that is holding information. And then you see the first request goes from the browser to the server, and then a response is rendered. For example, as I have shown here, that when the request was sent, for example, this, the request was sent and then a response was given from the database or the server. And this is how the communication works. I think it is important to understand this basic flow, or the overall HTTP response in a format, because when you're designing web applications or maybe mobile applications, this is important. As you may have seen that a lot of the as the LLMs are getting smarter and smarter, so a lot of coding is done by Cursor or Windsurf or any other coding agents. So you may have to rely on these, but you need to understand some of the basic and fundamental concepts to design these applications in a much smarter way so that the user data is safely encrypted and received and sent over the server, and there is no leak of the user database. I think there was also leakage of database, I think a few months ago. I think it was I don't know what it was. Let me check. It was a database leaks of it was a dating app. Yeah, the T app it was. So the entire database got leaked because they, okay, let me explain it here. As you can see, this was an, for example, this, okay, for example, this was the database, and it was a bucket that stored all of the images, user credentials, and the or other email addresses or the verified IDs. All of this data was stored in an open bucket. Open bucket means the URL of the bucket was, you know, uh, the URL of the bucket was open in the client. Okay, here it the it was open in the client, so anybody could have accessed it. So some people tried, and it was easy for them. So the database got hacked, and then the app literally crashed, and I don't know, and nobody uses it right now. So we will be understanding the basic flow of the communication, the protocol that is used between the browser and the database and the server. Let's go through it again one more time with this technical jargon. So I think the reason I showed this was that each device that you build applications for will use different HTTP, this protocol, the communication method that is fetching and sending data to the server and the database. This HTTP protocol will be using different defined elements for every application. For example, it may be using different application different um, predefined methods for mobile applications, for web, and for the admin maybe. So it is important to understand the HTTP and the protocol that is defined. So let's begin. So it's the same. The browser sends a request. First, the request does not hit the backend. So backend is the main source, the, let's say, the storage of all the user data and the company's data. So as you can see, the browser does the request first of all to the server. The server is a layer. It contains a lot of machines that are keep on switching as the user requests are sent and users interact with the client, your front end of the applications. So the first request is sent to the server. For example, the request can be fetch, for example, fetch a video. It will first send to the server, and server will first verify if the user that is requesting the data is authentic or not. If it's bot, it may try for a CAPTCHA verification, and if it does not require any verification, it will it will just check for some basic security checks that does not include any malicious code, and then it will hit the server, that will hit the backend, the main database that contains the data, and then the server will fetch the server this server will fetch the data from the backend and then respond back to the browser. this is how the interactions keep on repeating over and over again. And this is a simple flow. You know, when you're building a simple to-do applications, you will understand that the flow is simple. But as you keep on adding a lot more elements, for example, more security layers, more server, so the main component will be the server and the backend, which will require more engineering thought process when you're building it, more than the the front end, which does require some design skills. But the engineering point of view, the engineering, let's say, your majority of brain power will go to here, designing the server and the backend structure, backend architecture. So first of all, let us understand what is HTTP actually. How does it make the communication work between the browser and the backend? So this we're gonna call it client. I think instead of browser, we should keep calling it client. It's easy if you have a developer. Okay, so we're gonna understand what is HTTP and how does it communicates with the how does it work as a communication protocol between the client and the server and backend. So eventually, so it's a simple, let's say, a text-based, convention that when the client and the server will be communicating, it will follow certain rules. So first of all, the HTTP is not a complete in its own build. It depends on other, factors and other technologies like TCP, whose main purpose is to establish a connection between two computers using, IP addresses. So first of all, this is an IP, and above it is a TCP. So with the help of IP addresses, TCP works. So TCP establishes connection between two computers, and there are only few things the TCP can do, as if we compare it to HTTP. As you can see, the HTTP is only ensures that the data is passed, that the data is sent from one computer to another in order, in processed in whatever order you are sending data. For example, this is 1, this is 2. It will send the data in this format. As you will keep on sending data, it will try to maintain the format that is being followed. So that is a simple two things that it does: establish a connection and the ensuring the data is sent in a very order way. And there is no validation of the data, as there is no structured format of the TCP. It's only a, let's say, it's a dumb, stupid pipe. It's TCP is a simple communication pipe. I think you can say it like that: communication pipe between two computers between two computers. So its only purpose is to establish a connection between the two computers and the delivery of data. It has no way of validating the data and providing a structure that the data is, you know, is able to be is able to showcased in a desired format on the browser. So that is why HTTP exists. So HTTP solves the problem that it is a common language that the browser uses, so that the responses and requests are handled in a structured format. And there is also rules for convention, that the request pattern or the request text or the structure will look like this, and the response structure will look like certain way. That we will understand this. We will try to get an understanding of the request response pattern as we are understanding HTTP, and it's just a convention. It's not a very complicated coding concept. It's just a predefined structure for communication between the two computers. So it's just an agreement that these bytes or the data will be delivered or fetched in a certain readable format, so that we can also debug the errors and manage the communication in a certain way. So first of all, we have understood that the TCP works under the hood of works under the hood of HTTP. So how does HTTP actually work? So when there is a communication happening between the client and the server, there are few certain ways, there are few predefined methods that the communication can occur. So these are here. I think I've explained it too much. As you can see, there is a lot of explanation. I was trying to understand HTTP yesterday and the day before, so I try to map a lot of diagrams over it. But here's main part that we're going to understand it. So there are HTTP methods. For example, we can do some CRUD operations. We can fetch data like get, read, or retrieve data. It doesn't have any body, so there is the request format or the response format will sometimes have a body. The body will contain data to either post or to to update the data. The request, the HTTP request will not have any body of the data when it is fetching and when it is deleting something from the database. All the others will have body of some kind of data in it, and so the body can showcase that. And there are other methods. These methods are sometimes let's say rarely used when you're building applications. If you're managing maybe building something complex, then you may need it. For example, multiple servers, or maybe some security options that you need to check, or while building the server you need to test out some things, then these methods may be used. But the most common methods are these. The most probably 80-90% these methods are used. You will really use these methods as this is very not very complex. I mean, just really used for testing purposes and security purposes. So this is how the request looks like. For example, you're trying to post something from the browser to the server. So you're trying to post something, for example, you're trying to, let's say, I think example was, ah, you're trying to fetch post user data. So what you will do is when you send the user data from the form that will be shown on the client, when you press, for example, here, oops, submit, when you will enter the submit, then this data will be sent to the server. So how will it be structured is, first of all, the method will be specified. This post will be specified, and then where this data is being sent after you have sorry after you have defined your or entered your details. For example, it was name like Sean and maybe password, some password. This detail will be sent over to the server in this way. For example, post this data in the location of /API where the users are. So this is the defined method that will be in the backend, that will be defined in the backend. It is just shown in the browser, the server will receive. So these methods are also defined in the client, that this data that will be sent here, so that the server and the browser can easily send and receive data. So some parts are defined in the client also. And then after the location of the data that is supposed to be sent over the server is defined, then there is the method. So there are three methods. Here it is. So there are three HTTP versions. That is the most common and it's faster. I think HTTP 2 is mostly used right now. Maybe HTTP 1.1, and but this is the latest version. As you can see, it's faster and it's also more secure than all the other two HTTP versions. Yeah, you know, when I'm saying HTTP, it's actually HTTPS. It's interchangeable. So the only difference between HTTPS and HTTP is that the S type is it's more secure. So you may be able to bypass some security through the HTTP single, but this S version it's secure. So the most website today does uses this, but the methods are interchangeable. These any of the methods for request and response they may be using any of the methods, but the version will be HTTPS. So, okay, let me explain again. These versions, it's like um, type. Okay, that is has these features, this has these features, and this HTTP3 has these features. But the version HTTPS and HTTP, they are protocols. So HTTP and HTTPS, these both are protocols. These are not featured by feature based types. So mostly HTTPS is it's mostly this is used. So some old website that has no security maybe using HTTP. So mostly this HTTPS is used. So where were we? Yeah, there are HTTP methods that are being used are these. And that was all. Yes, that was all. And now on to the main part, the request response format. I think when building the applications, you need to have a little bit of understanding of the request format and the response format so that you can build the application in more secure way. So all these, as you can see, these elements of the request and response format, these are important when you're building the applications. To provide security is, to provide efficient communication, you need to use, I mean, not use it. I mean, these may be basic understanding of the format is important rather than trying to understand every other element. But you will start building applications. When we start building applications, you will understand this in a more concise way. For example, let me show you this. Okay, let me send a request again. This is pending right now. Okay, here. So these all elements, when you're building your trying to debug these applications, you will understand it at that moment in more depth rather than keep on trying to uh, let's say rote memorize these methods. It's not necessary. This is just for understanding how the communication works rather than what are the elements you need to remember. So let's again start. So HTTP request has these formats and the response has these formats. Every request from the browser is sent using this, that the whether it's post or whether it's delete, every request that you send will be adhered with this text format, and every response that you get from this server will adhere to this format. I think it is for the uniformity, so that every application is built with the same security and the same structure, that it is easy to keep track and easy to build it. Let's try to understand it. So the request format does include this. As you can see, this is, we have already talked about this, you know, and then you see the host. The host is the main target for the request, that where the request will be sending. So here you can see when I hit this, for example, when I hit this, the request that is going is to this website. Okay, yeah. Where is it? Okay, this is the URL. Okay, it contains all of this in a single line. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. What's confusing was, as you can see, this is the basic method. It was get, and then the host, the URL was this, and that will be content type. What is the content that is being fetched? It is, I think, body. It's HTML over the server. So this is, I think they're using Vercel. That is why it is directly sending HTML over the server. And there is also content length. I think it was the content length. Where it is? Where it is? Okay. I think it's not visible. Am I not able to see it here? Can this? Okay, wait a minute. No. Oh, a minute. It's me. Okay, let's get back to it. So request format, as you can see, it has these elements. First, it will be the post, where the location of the request is, and the format that is HTTP being used, and then where the request is being sent, and the content type that is being requested from the server, and the content length that is being delivered or fetched, will be fetched from the server. And then this is the important part, this authorization token. This is for website where you are able to access some of the resources using the user profile. Sometimes, okay, I think I'm using this, so I may not be able to access this using the without using the sign in. So I will not be able to access this resource. You may try to do it. I think, yeah, you can do it. I think this, where should we try it? It was Claude or not? I think let's try Gwen. No, I should try. I think a seed dream. I think let's try this. You will see that if the user does not have any, oh, it's not the same. Okay, let's try this. Yeah, you can see this. This is important. Oh, it's gone. I need to find it now. So this confirmation was for a bot that does show some different type of HTTP errors that is interesting to look at. Okay, let's try this. Text video. Let's okay, yeah, this look at this. For every request from this server or from the client, it requires sign in to run. But if I try to send it, it shows this. Oh, I need to sign in. Okay. So I need to sign. Okay, let's just explain it in this format. That when I will try to sign in, and after sign in, if I do not have any credits and then try to run it, it will show error. And these errors are defined, okay, for debugging purposes. There are three types of errors that are being status codes that are used over the HTTP. And the first one is, informational, that is really used or really seen from the client side. But these 200, 300, 400, and 500, these codes are usually seen as these are success codes. These are redirection. If you are being redirected to the login page, to the dashboard, or any application of the user profile, and then there is a client errors. If there is, you try to access any resource you're not authorized to on the server error when there is a server down. You usually see this 503 and 500 usually. And then of the status codes, oh yeah, it's fine. This is the application.json or accept this format. So this is defined so that the format that the server will respond with will be JSON. It will only accept the response from the server in the JSON format, not any other format for security purposes. So this is also predefined structure. And the response format will be, it's pretty simple. The response format is, it just sends the HTTP method being used and this code that is important, that if the request was successful, it will show 200 codes, and if the request was failed, it will show 401 failed. But now the user was created and then it shows 201 created, and it also shows the date for rate limiter purposes, and the content type that is being sent, and the content length that is being delivered from the server, and the server type, and the location that is being responded with. These are the complete format. I mean, this is just a demo format. Yeah, it's a demo format. This is the complete flow chart. Let's explain it again and try to understand it. So this is a client. The user wants to create an account, and it sends a request to the a post request to this API users, and with the HTTP1 method to the server, with the host, with the content type, and the content length. This sends the content over in this format. And then if the user has the valid credentials and does not have any, security, any error, then the user will be created. And then the response will be sent from the server back to the client that the user is successfully created, and this completes the HTTP single cycle. And as the user keeps on interacting with the front end side, client side, these requests will keep on, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, like here. But it will follow the same pattern. Just the method will change, some of the locations will change, and this usually doesn't really change if they usually keep using different, we're using different websites. So let's understand one more thing. I think this is the same chart I draw. This is the same thing, but with a chart that browser filter headers for sending the request to the server, and then TCP sends the bytes containing all these data to the server, and server receives and processes it, and then it again, using the HTTP response format, fills all the data in the body and the headers, and sends back the response using the TCP to the browser. And the browser shows the response code, the status codes, and the content type and the body, and rendered it on the screen. So the simple layer is this. There is an IP U that is using the TCP, or not U, it is in the HTTP. So this is U and this is the application for simple purposes. And these are the internal communication layers that are being used for the data delivery and the data responses requests. It seems complicated, but once you get a hang of it, when you try to draw some diagrams and try to, create a mind map of the whole thing, you will get a hang of it. It's pretty simple, just a text convention that is used for the communication, not a very complicated one. So it's just there it is. That's all. I think we'll try something else. Okay.